have tried to join online. Had a little bit of a technical issue, and I'm trusting that that has been resolved now, and trusting that we'll be able to run this training this evening successfully. So you just give us a little bit of time to stabilize on a few other things, and I will trust that we'll hit the road very soon. So just give us some time. Sorry we're late. I must apologize for this, and trust that within the time allowed. Just a few of the, and then after, I believe that we are good to the road. A few of the checks to ensure that we're okay. Once I've confirmed that we're okay, we would hit the road with today's presentations. All right. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm good to go now. So let's start. Sorry for the delay, but we'll start right away. Trying to ensure that all my technical issues are well taken care of, so that it's clear that whatever recording we'll be making will be spot on, and whatever recording we'll be making will be spot on, so that oh, okay, so let's see. I think I'm good to go now. Just wanted to be very sure that everything I'm doing, I've been having this stuff. Okay. So confirmation that what I have is good to go. So I can proceed. I can proceed. I have confirmation that what I'm doing is in order, so I can now proceed. Good evening, everybody. You're on to the mathematics multiverse. This is the Mamu with Jai, as usual. All right, so I love to play the keyboard, so just my way of saying welcome to today's program. Ah, it's been a very exciting one for us in this multiverse. Mamu Jarvis, a concept that started sometime in 2020 during the COVID, I think May or thereabouts during the COVID, is now something that's providing lots of support and encouragement. And when we started, it started with maths, just teaching of mathematics, but now we're stretching our tentacles to chemistry, to physics, chemistry, physics. And now we are also looking into exams and what you need to know. We have a crusade called Say No to Online Malpractice. And we discovered that to curb malpractice, we must have a strategy. When I talked about right strategy, we must have a strategy on ground to ensure that students are not doing malpractice. Like I said in some of my videos, I don't have control over anything in exam, but I have one control. I have control over the student. I can teach my students to the level where they will see the malpractice and say, no, I'm not going to use it. Hence, the exam success series has come to stay. So every Tuesday, 9 p.m., and every Saturday, 9 p.m., we're here to provide that kind of support. With our NECO best experience, an echo best experience. And in the previous edition, I did a summary as to everything you would expect from franchise. But today, I'll be looking more into the NECO BECE. NECO BECE examination. Like I said, it's an exam taken by grade 9 students in Nigeria. To put in perspective, whatever you're going to hear today, you can actually, what's the word to use now? You can actually do a tweak on it. You can scale up or scale down to suit the unique exam environment you're dealing with. The concepts are still the same. The ideas you can apply to different setup. So I would implore you to, whatever I'm going to say concerning Bese, look at the key ideas that you can take to apply to others. So we'll go straight ahead. I'm going to be dropping a remastered master course of the NECO BC separately. Maybe you get that by tomorrow about 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. or thereabout, just to make you ready for this particular live class of today. We'll have the remastered copy coming up shortly. So let's go into the work of today. We said that for the NECO BESE exam, essentially, we're looking at three papers: paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3. Paper 1 is for 80 minutes, paper 2 is for 80 minutes, and paper 3 is for 45 minutes. We have said that for paper 1, there are two key areas identified. We have the arithmetic aspect and we have the geometry aspect. So arithmetic and geometry will constitute the exam called paper 1. Paper 2 will be made up of what is called algebra and your statistics and probability. These are the two areas making up paper 2. So let's start with paper 1. Paper 1 essentially is made up of arithmetic and your geometry. And my model for this discussion will be looking at the just concluded NECO BECE 2023. The model is always the same. The perception, the flow of the exams, they're always the same. But what may differ may be some of the little technical details. So from year to year, the information might change a little, but it doesn't move away from the core structure. I talk about the concept. I call it the state of play, the play formula. Call it the state of play, the play formula. Every exam has this play formula. And once you hook onto the play formula, you find it very easy to do well in that exam. So having said that, we go into paper 1, we look at the arithmetic. So when we say arithmetic, we expect 24 questions from arithmetic. We said that paper 1 has 60 questions, but we're expecting what? 24 questions from arithmetic. So what are the areas being tested in arithmetic? I'm going to be reading them out and I'm going to tell you the number of questions to expect. Number 1, there is a concept of square roots, cube roots, square, and cubes. Usually we have 2 questions from there. That's under arithmetic. Of the 24 questions, we have 2 questions from there. You're going to have 1 question from standard form. You're going to have 1 question from approximations or more specifically, significant figures. You're going to have 5 questions from fractions, bordering around concepts like word problem, board maths, improper fraction, decimals. But essentially fractions, you're going to have 5 questions. You're going to have 3 questions from the concept of prime factors, LCM and HCF. You may want to look up my videos on this topic. I may have to post them much later after now. Prime factors, LCM, HCF. You're going to have 3 questions from there. You're going to have word problems, testing your knowledge of sum, difference, products, and division. 1 question, you must have 1 question from there, and it's going to be taking a word problem form. When I'm done with this, I will also go to the question paper and use it 2023 as a model and give you examples for these questions. Now, we also have the binary and number-based system. You're going to have 3 questions from there. 3 questions. You're going to have reciprocals. You're going to have 1 question from reciprocals. Then you have the concept of proportions and ratio. You're going to have 3 questions from there. You're going to have 1 question for simple interest and 1 question for compound interest. Now, why are this information very, very important? Because it helps the teacher and the student to know the what I may call the food cooked or the meal cooked. What are the essential ingredients? You discover that in this exam, fractions takes about 5 questions. So of the 24 questions you're going to expect, 4 questions are under fractions. Then things like proportion and ratio, 3 questions, a number-based system, 3 questions, prime factors, LCM, HCF, that's 3 questions. So you have an idea of what questions you are going to expect and what to do. Now you can use this model to also view your SSC, WAEC, or NECO exam. It may not be like this because this is for junior secondary, but you should know that for every exam there is a formula. There's a way the questions are being spread. Once you know the way the questions are being spread, it helps you to prepare. So how does my information of these 24 questions under arithmetic help me? So in preparing for this exam, what I will need to do as a teacher or as a student is to, okay, I know there's going to be square roots, cube roots, squares, and cubes. So what do I do as I'm preparing for the exam? I will pick these questions all into one group. Like I said earlier in my first video, you need 5 years question paper to have an objective view of what to do. So for the 5 years, pick questions that are like that. Keep it. So if I'm going to prepare this now, I'm going to get 5 years question paper, standard form. I pick all the questions that are on standard form. They may not, the shades and what is tested may not be the same, because like for standard form, you're going to have 2 aspects to it. You could have pure decimals or whole numbers. You get it? But if you have solved questions from 5 years under standard form, there is no way you will see standard form in the exam and not be able to answer it. And that's how these things work. So you must know the kind of questions that are coming out and then go ahead to answer them. So that's for arithmetic, 24 questions, and I've given you the breakdown. There will be a remastered copy of this presentation, and in that remastered copy, you have write-up and things like that, making them into short videos that you can really appreciate. The next important area in paper 1 is what is called geometry. So what are the areas of geometry? I said that geometry has 4 essential areas. You have trigonometry, formal geometry, measuration, loci, and construction. Now, in this video, I will not go too deep into this area of geometry, but I'll give you what I may call the ingredients to cook this soup called geometry. Now, trigonometry questions are usually 9. Formal geometry questions are usually 8. It may vary, maybe reduction by 1 or increase by 1, but usually this one. Trigonometry, 9 questions. Formal geometry, 8. Measuration, 14. And loci and construction, 5. So you see that if you do not know your measuration, you have a problem. Remember that under geometry, you're going to expect 36 questions. There are 36 questions in a NECO BEC junior secondary school exam. So if out of 36 questions, one area is going to give you like 14 questions, so you can imagine what you're going in for. And let me also shock you. In these 14 questions, we're going to have separate videos on trigonometry, formal geometry. Like I said, it's a series, so I'm giving a general overview. I'll still come back to break them and tell you specific questions you're going to have from here. Under measuration, you're going to have lots of questions from circle, area, circumference, all of that. You have close to about 5 questions from that area alone. If I pick the NECO BEC question paper, for instance, I want to pick all the questions that has to do with a circle. So if you have the question paper, you can work with me, but I'm going to drop the link. I have a Telegram page where you can get all these question papers. So you join the group and we'll be uploading you with all of these question papers and make your revision experience very, very nice. Now, if you look at that, in that exam alone, everything pertaining to circle, I can count. If you look at that, question number 40, question number 39, question number 44, what other one? Question number, if you look at that, you have close to about 5 questions from that area alone. So when we take other videos in this series, I'm going to break each aspect out and show you what to do. So we've said that for geometry, we have trigonometry, 9 questions, formal geometry, 8 questions, measuration, 14 questions, loci and construction, 5 questions. So that is more like a feel for that aspect. We come to what I may call paper 2 and arguably the most technical aspect of the exam, and that is algebra, then statistics and probability. Now, algebra is 42 questions. 42 questions. And I tell my students, if you don't do well in algebra, there might be a problem. The algebra determines how far you go because see, and from experience, once you can handle your algebra well, every other aspect of math will be kind of sweet. So you have 42 questions from algebra, and I'm going to give you a breakdown of the number of questions to expect. My classification may not be what you would use, but for the purpose of this course, we're going to use my classification. Number 1, quadratics. Now, quadratics could be equations or implied. So I call it quadratics and trinomials. So one of the examples of a trinomial is a quadratic. So quadratic in the form of either expressions or light equations, word problem, whatever shape it will take. So from quadratics, you have 7 questions. 7 questions under quadratics, 7 questions under quadratic. You have 7 questions under quadratic. Then you have 11 questions under algebraic fractions. Let's pause. So you see that is one area you mustn't play with. Now, hear this, under algebra, there are 2 or 3 ways questions can come. It can either come as a direct question or as word problem. And the word problem, you need to be very careful about. It can come as a direct question or as what? A word problem. I come again, a direct question or a word problem. So, for algebra, we've said that you have quadratics, which will be 7 questions. You have algebraic fractions. Now, these algebraic fractions will come in 3 ways. It could come as an equation, it could come as an expression, or it could come as a word problem. Now, this word problem can also be an expression or an equation. You get it? So, algebraic fractions is something you, as a student, don't want to play with, something your teachers don't want to play with. Then you have what I call factorization. Now, the factorization I'm referring to here is the one that is not quadratic. So it's more like a binomial. A binomial. So you're expected to factorize a binomial. So that's what I mean by the factorization, the simple linear binomial expressions. Then we have inequalities. Inequalities usually will have 6 questions. 6 questions under inequalities. Then you have simultaneous equations. Usually we'll have what? 5 questions. 5 questions under what? Simultaneous equations. Now, simultaneous equations will take 2 forms. It will either come as a word problem or as normal stated linear equations, and then you're required to solve out. Your task is to be able to identify. Fluctuating network. Okay, all right. Okay, I don't know. So sorry about that. I'm having my network today is fluctuating. So please, in case you lose a trend as sorry about that. I don't know why this is happening. The network seems to be tripping and tripping and tripping. So just bear with me. Simultaneous equation having 5 questions, and then we come to we come solving linear equations. Change of subject of formula, we have one question. Then we have okay, I think we're better now. All right, okay, thank you. I think we're better now. Then we have what is called change of subject of formula. We have one question from there. We have what is called linear graphs. Linear graphs, we have two questions from linear graphs. And these questions, when we dig into these concepts deeper, I would explain some of the things you expected from there. Then we have what is called algebraic simplification. I will explain that better. And in some narrative, we can actually class that on to you clearly why we're keeping them separately. Then we have what is called substitution, linear substitution. When we have expressions, we can do substitutions in them. And in future installment, we'll actually go to the board and I will show you how you can identify these questions, because it's important for you to be able to identify these questions. Perhaps when I do my remastered copy, I will show some of these things and explain them for you clearly. Now we have the last one, which is called variation. Variation is usually one question. Usually they will test your knowledge of either direct or inverse variation. You test your knowledge of whether direct or what inverse variation. So it's just one question. So what is the import of this discussion? The highest number of questions you're going to see in this exam will come from what is called algebraic fractions, 11 questions. You're going to have 7 questions from quadratics. You're going to have 6 questions from inequalities. You're going to have 5 questions from simultaneous equations. Then 3 questions each from linear equations and substitution. So this helps you to prepare for the exam. You know where questions are coming out from and know how to channel your energy. I always tell students this. It's not a cover, teachers are see, it's not enough to just talk about covering of the skill. Am I saying it's not important? It is important. But going back to right strategy, you must ensure that the structure of the exam is understood. The state of play is understood very well so that you don't waste your time on something that is not relevant. For instance, I'm only going to see one question from variation. So when I'm teaching variation, I should know how to handle that. So when your students come into SS3, if you're doing, that's if you're talking about SS3, but since we're focusing on GSS3, when your students come into GSS3 from first term, hear me, as the term is resuming soon, from first term, you should have a strategy in place to identify where you're going to have the bulk of the questions and focus to ensure that the students can answer lot at least. If you're having areas where you're having 11 questions, your students should at every point in time before the exam be able to answer at the least 8 of it. Because if they can answer 8 from that area, other areas they can easily manage and flow with. So we come to the last aspect of paper 2. 42 from 60 will give me 18, and that is statistics. Now, under statistics and probability, usually we'll have, I think, 2 questions under, if I'm right, usually we have 2 questions under probability. About 2 questions under probability. Let me do a double confirmation on that. 2 questions under probability and 16 questions under statistics. So what are essentially the things you should look out for under statistics? Usually there will be pie charts. Your children should be able to interpret pie charts. There will be bar charts. Usually from the years of this exam, I discovered that there's always um, pie charts and bar charts. Those are the two major areas that you're going to see in the exam, bar chart and pie chart. Your children should be able to calculate mean, mode, median, and range. And more importantly, they should be able to connect this idea to simple equation. For instance, they may tell you uh, 5 items, one of them is X and their mean is 5. They give you some, then they ask you to look for what that one is. It's application of your equations. So, and that's why when I teach maths, all the years I've taught maths now, what I've done is I don't have maths in my class. What I have is arithmetic, algebra, geometry. We carry it together. What I do a rescripting of my scheme. Once you give me my scheme for the term, hear this, the scheme for the term is teacher centric. What I mean by that is that it is you, the teacher, you are the coach. You decide how you're going to, the formula you're going to use to teach your students. The school gives you would move the curriculum to you, okay, this is what they're expected to do. You are the teacher of the class. You should rescript. See, if your scheme says week 1 you do this, and you feel based on the student structure you have or their strength that you can't take that topic, please move it away. Look for topic you can rearrange your, but the most important is that at the end of the term or at the end of the session, you have covered and you have done the needful. So in this arrangement, taking you back here, you discover that probability is usually 2 to about 5 questions. I think in this year's exam it was 5. So if you have 5 questions on probability and 30 questions from statistics, that gives you about 18. So in this year's question, probability covered question 55, 56, 57, 58, and 59. So 5 questions from probability. 5 questions from probability. In subsequent edition of this program, I'm going to do a very detailed analysis covering 5 years questions. So you have a very objective way to handle this. See, I want us by the end of this program, not just because I'm a staff or a teacher in Ajikebra Education Center, but I'm passing this knowledge so that our children, this phobia for maths will die. This concept of online malpractice will die. I noticed that English language is well taught. And it's not that it's because it's simply, or maybe you're teaching it so well. No, I think it's just because of the paradigm, the perception of the subject. So teachers handling this subject, you may want to do more. If we work with this strategy, I think it will help our students to appreciate what is being done and calm them down. So in case you didn't hear all I've been saying, let's have a quick recap of what we've talked about so far. We said that in this exam, there are 2 papers, paper 1, paper 2. For paper 1, we have arithmetic, and then we have what? Geometry. Arithmetic will have 24 questions. Geometry will have 36 questions. And of these 36 questions, we have geometry broken down into concepts like trigonometry, formal geometry, majoration, locus, and loci and construction. Trigonometry 9 questions, formal geometry 8 questions, majoration 14 questions, loci and construction 5 questions. Now we also went ahead to look at paper 2. You know the exam is 60 questions and paper 2 is also 60 questions. And in paper 2 we're looking at algebra. Algebra has 42 questions and we have statistics and probability making up 18 questions. So I'll start with statistics and probability. For statistics and probability, there are 5 questions under probability, 13 questions covering general aspects of statistics. And I did say that some of the aspects you expect in statistics will be things like mean, mode, median, range. If you were dealing with SS classes, you may need to know things like mean deviation, variance, assumed mean, and things like that. But since we're looking at JSS, we'll restrict ourselves to mean, median, range. Then you should also be able to bring in the idea of what I may call equations into this. You need the idea of equations into this proportion, and these are things that could play out in statistics. Something else you need to take your children through will be things like pie charts, bar charts, how to interpret the answers from them. Very, very important. Very, very important. And so with that, I think we've done a covering of everything you need to know about NECO BECE examination. And I'm trusting that you have been able to, I trust it has helped. Now, the big question some of us will ask will be, so how do I scale this to other exams? Very simple. The concept I've just passed across is the importance of you to do your analysis. Every outstanding coach in modern football spends time to do analysis. I remember this one. I remember Liverpool and clubs like Napoli. I think Napoli one time was credited for using drones during their rehearsal and during their practice. If I'm correct, if I said that correctly, sports fan will be able to verify some of this information some time ago. Now, you must do your analysis. You must pay attention to details because these are the things that will help you do well in the exam. People are doing well in the exam not because they've read the most, but because they have the right strategy towards the exam. So once again, I want to thank you for your time. We had a lot of issues today, technical issues, part due to a little bit of my understanding of how this whole thing works, part due to our unique data network system. But I'm trusting that tonight I've been able to pass across a very valuable message to us. We're going to edit this and we'll trust that the remastered copy will be available by Saturday so we can watch and enjoy ourselves. Thank you for your time. And before I close tonight, I want to do something I always love to do. I'll play the keyboard for you and I'll call it a day. So this is Mamu Wijavis signing out, and I trust I will see you soon. Thank you very much. I love you, and say no to online malpractice. I'll see you soon.